Hello and welcome to Quaint and Cozy KC. I am your host, Lainey Renee. And for this episode, I'm going to take you all over basically the Northland this time. And I started off with the Gilded Page. Now, if you're familiar with Redux, Rest in Power to Redux, they used to do dance lessons. They were first on Southwest Boulevard, then they moved to the West Bottoms, where they, did like book things. They had all kinds of dance lessons. I took dance lessons there. They just had like a lot of cool. I think they had lightsabers. They had all kinds of cool activities going on, and then they kind of like had to shut everything down. And so they've kind of popped up again. Like they kind of broke everything up. And so the Gilded Page is part of that. And so the Gilded Page is the book, kind of like the book aspect of the old Redux organization. And so I went for the first time, and it is so cute. It's in the Northland, and there is, as I record this, there is some construction over there, but there's a parking lot. There's plenty of parking, so you're not doing some weird street parking thing. There's plenty of parking. There's a lot, kind of a strip mall lot. And so when you walk in, you kind of see it, and it looks like it's got some like a gamer thing on there because I used to play like games there too. And you walk in, and it's like going into a cozy space. Okay. And they have book clubs there and some other, I think they have other event opportunities. You probably want to go ahead and call them if you want more information about that. I will put the website in the show notes. But when I first walked in, it was like being at your auntie's or grandma's house, the one that has like the tea and cookies for you. And there's like a lot of like I noticed a lot of kind of like a satiny, velvety kind of like thing, very comfortable. I would definitely say this is the kind of place if you want like a parent day out, if you're a book person and you like cozy spaces, like a mom's day out or a dad's day out, or an auntie's day out or an uncle's day. It's perfect for that. You could go meet up with people, and it's kind of like a quieter space. So it's not a space where I want to go and talk really loudly because people are enjoying books, but it's a nice space. Like you guys go, bring your books, like whatever, buy a couple of books and just sit and relax and just kind of soak up the vibe. It's definitely a vibe place, and that is kind of when I walked in, and they were really nice. They kind of explained everything. They have books there. They have bookmarks, all the accoutrements of like your average bookstore, and then everything is laid out really cute. So it feels like when you're coming in, it's like an event, right? Like a cute little event. Now, this is the kind of place, because there are food places around that area. There's a place called, I believe it's called Queen Sweets. Now, listen, this is not my food pot. This is not my Queen Sweets and Bakery is like down the street. So this is not my food podcast because and that's Aunt Lanie's Kitchen. So I haven't been there yet. It's been on my list. I've just kind of gotten like, distracted and whatever, but it's actually down the street. And I've heard really good things about this place, Queen Sweets and Bakery. It's down the street. So to me, it would be like a nice kind of place to go have lunch at Queen Sweets and Bakery, then go and hang out a little bit at the Gilded Page and like, kind of wind down, or you could meet at the Gilded Page, hang out there for a little bit, and then, go on over to Queen Sweets and Bakery. So that's again just some things to kind of like recommend to you. Super cute spaces, and it's like a nice quiet afternoon because I believe the Gilded Page is open like they're open on the weekends. I know that they're open on Friday, Saturday. They are closed on Sunday. So it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So they are closed on Sundays and Mondays. But it is a nice little, and it opens at 10 a.m. on Saturday. So you could do some kind of like coffee run there, do a coffee run at a local coffee shop, then, head on down there and hang out for a little bit after your little coffee or breakfast run. Perfect place for that to kind of like wind down the afternoon, although they do stay open till 8 p.m. on Saturday. So maybe what you could do is you could kind of flip that around. You could do like an early dinner, then come in to kind of like unwind at this place and just kind of because they have like nice seating there. So there's some seating there. I mean, it's not super big, but there are some places to sit down or whatever. It's more like a parlor, like a small, I think of it as like a small parlor. So if you were there like on a date night or with just a few friends, it's a great place to kind of stop, either start the party there or unwind there. Just a great place to do it. And that is the Gilded Page. It's a really nice, it's an experience, right? It's an experience. Or you can just go there by yourself like I did and check it out. Everyone was really nice and they answered my questions. And it's a nice quiet space to just kind of, relax a little bit, maybe put on your ear pods. They do have music that plays. I felt like was pretty relaxing. But yeah, just go and just like, let the world pass you by for a little bit. Now, that was last Saturday for me. On Sunday, I finally was able to go to the Northland Symphony Orchestra Association's to their winter concert. I've been trying to see their programs for a long time, but I swear every time I would try to go, something random would come up. I'm like, what the heck? This is so random. But luckily, I was able to go, and the featured soloist was Susie Yang. And so it started off with, and it was just it was they did two pieces. And both pieces were kind of on the longer side, like 25 minutes, 30 minutes. And then there was a 15-minute intermission. And then they started with the fall, like the next piece. So they started off with Beethoven Symphony No. So if you're familiar with Beethoven, it's very like his music. And I do have a music degree. I always like try to tell people like when I start to get like in the weeds, like this is why I'm still geeking out about this. But they started off with like a nice kind of adagio, and it's kind of very slowly but fast with spirit, kind of like that. And then the next movement was a larghetto, and that's kind of relatively slow. And then the scherzo allegro was kind of fast. And then they ended it. They ended the last movement, the fourth movement was allegro molto, so it was very fast. And it was like a rousing way. I love it when they do this because sometimes what happens is that they'll start off with a slower piece and it's like, okay, and it's all slow. It's not something where it's varied and it kind of draws you in and then you kind of, step back a little bit. No, it's so slow. It's very slow, but they did not do this. I felt like the Beethoven Symphony No. 2 was a great choice, especially on a Sunday afternoon. So this is kind of like a wind down for people, like because the week's going to start, like Monday's going to start the next day and the work week's going to start and then but this is like kind of like something like a little pop of something, and I was out to my car by like 4:45. And then the second piece they played was by Elgar. Now listen, I was not familiar with Elgar. I believe the first name, I just want to make sure I get the first name right, is Edward Elgar, Sir Edward Elgar, and he was from the 20th century. So, well, I guess, 19th into, 20th century, whatever. But so yeah, now I was really excited to listen to this piece because I am not familiar with him. Okay, and so this piece it's a cello. And again, Susie Yang is like a celloist. And so she kind of led everything. And again, it was kind of like the same uh kind of recipe with an adagio starting off there, but it was moderate. So it was kind of slow and moderate. And then the next one was a lento allegro molto, and that's very slow, very fast. And then, of course, they kind of slowed it down with the adagio. And then they ended, the fourth movement was an allegro moderato, allegro ma non troppo. So it's kind of fast, moderate pace, fast, but not too fast. And so they kind of ended it kind of like on a rousing note. And I love that they did that. So it wasn't one of those things where it's like, okay, now I've got to bring this into my, the rest of the day. I got to get through the rest of the day, whatever that looked like for people. But I felt like their music selection was right on. Now they don't allow photography or video recording. So just, keep that in mind. I know everyone wants to like, be on the tickety tockety, and I'm on there, or the Instagram or whatever, and you want to like take pictures and capture things and do memories, and that's great, but they are not fans of that. So, yes. And also, what I want to say is this. I will be the first to admit, I kind of underestimated how crowded it was going to be. I was like, I left my house because I'm in the Northland, and I left my house and I was like, oh, I'll get there, whatever. It's not that far away from my house. And then I was like, oh my gosh, parking was wild, y'all. Like I got there around 2:30, 2:35, 2:40. I was like, oh my gosh, like it was getting lit. People were coming in after me. And so, also, if you go to the Northland High School, the concert is, I don't know if they have elevators. I didn't notice if they did. I'm sure they probably do, but it's like I had to go up like a couple flights of stairs. So just FYI. But I don't know if I didn't see any elevators. That doesn't mean they don't have them. I just wasn't looking for them. So yes, so I definitely would say these events are very popular, which is good. I love that everyone, and it was free to attend. You're always free to donate and everything like that. Um, I really loved that the community really came out for it. And I'm sure, these people have been doing this for years and I'm like the newbie, but I'm always saying like, hey, let's support the local community choruses. Let's support the orchestras and the local chamber music and the local bands, like all that stuff. So, like, let's support that. Throw our support behind them. So definitely support it. You want to get there early. So I would definitely be looking for a space to park at least 30 minutes ahead of time, maybe 40 if because parking is there's a lot of street parking, but there's also Mackin Park by the high school. So if you go and it's like maybe a nicer day, and it was a little chilly on Sunday, but there's still people out in the park. So you just keep that in mind. Parking can be at a premium. And so then their next concerts, because they have 5 free concerts a year, which I love that. So and they give you a program. And so their next events that they're having, they are having a pickleball tournament March 8th. So I guess there's a sign up on their website. And then April 11th, they are having a spring concert at Pine Ridge Presbyterian Church. And unfortunately, I will be unable to attend that. And then April 26th, they're going to do the Northland Youth Ensemble Spring Concert, and that's at 4 p.m. at Staley High School. And then the Northland Symphony Orchestra Pops Concert, Be Our Guest, the music of Disney. That's going to be May 17th, 2026. That's going to be at 3 p.m. and it's going to be at North Kansas City High School. And I bet that's going to be so popular because, again, a lot of people love classical music. They love that kind of instrumental thing, but everybody knows Disney. So you're probably going to have a lot of families out for that. So just to, again, be aware, it starts at 3. I would start getting everything together and ready and be parking by 2:20, 2:30, so you can kind of get the seat that you want to get, because I believe they do open like 30 minutes before the performance. So, that way you can get in there and get the seat that you want. It's really important for some people. I sat at the very top because I didn't have any kids or elders with me, anything like that. It was just me. And I kind of like to sit up in the nosebleeds because you get a really nice, for me, a nice view and the music kind of like flows up. I love it. And I'm generally not in a hurry to kind of get out, like, because I didn't have anything else going on. I wasn't meeting up with anybody or anything like that. So I was like, you know what? I got time. So I just kind of was leisurely about, like leaving and everything like that. And then I guess May 31st, they're having a trivia night at Chicken and Pickle. And I think with the pickleball tournament and the trivia night, I think that those are kind of like, fundraisers for them. So just kind of keep that in mind. And of course, you can go to their website, which I will link in the show notes. So yes, I had so much fun there. I hopefully, fingers crossed, the only one I can possibly go to now, the next one is May 17th. So hopefully I can get there. But if I can't, maybe you can make it there. Bring your family. It's very family. When I say family friendly, I mean, there are people of all ages there, but you got to be careful with the littles because, the littles sometimes with that kind of music, if sometimes they just fall asleep. Sometimes they get restless and, can get disruptive and stuff. But again, your kids, your people, just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, now let's move on to some comfort. We could all use some comfort right now. And so I went back to PBS because that's one of my, that's kind of how I donate to PBS is I do their streaming service, pbs.org. So I went back to Miss Scarlett. Now I've talked about this a few months ago, like kind of when I was listing off the mystery cozy shows, and I started watching it, and I was like, okay, it was a little slower for me. So I ended up finding some shows that moved a lot faster for me. So I'm like, okay, this one because I prefer to do the 50-minute, 50-minute, or hour-long episodes versus doing the 90-minute episodes. And again, don't get me wrong, because you can always do 45 minutes here, 45 minutes there. But what happens is it's hard for me to do that when I know, because you're at the 45-minute mark a lot of times. It's like there's a cliffhanger. And I'm like, I gotta know what happens. So then I end up like, watching it. And then I'm like, oh wow, I'm almost done. So I might as well just finish it. But I kind of prefer to just do like an hour a night. Sometimes if it's a weekend afternoon, I'm like, I can fold some clothes or work on my social media. I'll do too. But I'm really trying to get into a slower movement with binge watching shows. I kind of want it to be more of an experience versus like, okay, got to mark that off my calendar. I want it to be leisurely because it's supposed to be fun. That's just kind of what I'm doing. I suggested this to a couple of people and they looked at me, they're like, what? What are you talking about, girl? I'm like, yeah, I just want to kind of do one episode, two at the most, so I can kind of savor things. I'm kind of in my savor era, I guess. Okay. Next, I want to talk to you about, my that was my comfort show was Miss Scarlett. And basically, I talked about it a few months ago. Maybe I should before I go into my comfort read, explain a little bit more. So Scarlett is a young lady who's living in I think 1800s, early 1900s, London, and her father's a private investigator, and she kind of works with him a little bit. I think she does a lot of the office thing. Anyway, he dies, and they don't have a lot of money, and he's got a lot of debt, and it like turns into this thing, and she doesn't have a husband, and it's a scandal, and so she's kind of like, pretending like he's still alive. She's kind of, being a little like, oh yeah, I'm working for my dad. He isn't here yet. Whatever. Okay, fine. Like he's a little sick right now. Like she's kind of doing that kind of stuff. And so she's kind of like she ends up kind of making angering a local criminal boss person and then also angering the detective inspector that was friends with her dad. So it's kind of like this nice cast of like characters. And I'm excited for the second episode. And I looked and it's got 6 episodes on pbs.org. So it's a nice little thing. And I think they have about 8 to 10 episodes a season. So that's good. Like that's good. That's if you're someone who's like, I can't just do like, 2 seasons of 8 episodes. I need more. It's got plenty of episodes. It's a little slow moving. The first 15 minutes when they're setting it up. Now, again, this was the pilot, but they're setting it up. It does feel like, oh my gosh, is this? But then when they hit their groove, it's like you blink and the show is like the episode's over. So definitely want to just keep that in mind. These episodes start a little on the slower side. And then by the like you are glued to it. By the time 15 minutes have passed, you're like, you get over that hump of them explaining things and whatever, unraveling the mystery and doing all that stuff. You just blink and the episode is over. So, and they're about 50, almost an hour long. Okay, now let's move on to North Carolina. And here is a book series that I started off listening to this book series on audiobook. And then my library, like I guess, and again, a lot of the libraries, they kind of like have to go through each year and sometimes they have to downsize a little bit on their hoopla. And that is what it is. And so it was no longer on the audiobook, but it was on the ebook. Now, I used to not be an ebook person because back in the day, they were not very good. Like you get this PDF and it would slide down. It was hard to follow, whatever. But it has come a long way since I first started doing ebooks. And so I'm like, okay, now sometimes instead of going for the audiobook, I will go for the ebook. And this is the kind of book you can do either audiobook or ebook. It's fine. Not all books are like that. Some books really do need the audio. Okay. And other books, really, it's just the ebook because the narrator is not very good. So this series is about an amateur sleuth, and her name's Everly Swan. She lives in Charm, North Carolina, and she returned back to Charm, North Carolina. I think she was, I can't remember if she was living in Chicago or someplace else. She was like in a bigger city. And so she came back to Charm and she's there with her aunts on the island, her great aunts on the island, because her parents have both passed away and her grandmother's passed away. It's her grandma's sisters that she's living with. And so it's kind of like, it's kind of a fun thing. Now she is on the young side. So sometimes it can get a little silly. Like she and her friends are like in their 20s, but it's still fun. It's not annoying. It's not like sometimes when I read a character in their 20s, because how they're written, I'm like, why are they making this person sound like kind of annoying? She's not annoying. She's just a little silly to me. She kind of feels like that younger cousin, that you have, or that younger niece that you have, and they're just sweet as heck, but they're a little silly. Not idiotic, but they're just like a little silly and headstrong and all that stuff. So this is a book that someone at me who's, over 40 could still appreciate, all the other characters because she has characters that are like, in their 70s and 80s and then, characters in their 30s. So it's like a nice kind of blend of all these different ages. It's kind of like a community. I really like how it's written. So it's a nice little comfort read. And that's another thing I'm currently doing too. I'm reading it on on Hoopla on my phone before I go to bed. And I'm like, you know what? I'm trying just to do a chapter a night. Cause again, I'm in my era of like the saver era, I call it. but I just want to kind of like go slowly and just like, go over the words and stuff like that and not rush through everything because I do have a lot going on. So I do tend to sometimes I can just like rush through things. I'm like, no, especially with my Quaint and Cozy KC stuff and my Aunt Lanie's Kitchen stuff and all of the fun things that I'm doing, like my side things, I want to actually enjoy them, right? And so I'm trying to move like a little bit slower, a little bit more intention, all of that so I can appreciate these things more. Now, that is all for this is like a short little bite, like my bite-sized podcast. Thank you guys for supporting that. And I'm going to be going to the Inglewood Arts Center, so I'm excited about that this weekend. And then I'm also like I'm like the weather's not so supposed to be great on Sunday because I was scheduled to kind of go and see family in Lee Summit, but I'm not going to be able to do that because I think the weather's not going to be great. So I'll have to postpone that. But I'll have to postpone that. But I'm on the lookout for something else because I'll be doing the Inglewood Arts Center, and then I'll be looking at probably going to because I'll be going to Johnson County next weekend. So I'll probably hit up a couple of museums, at least one museum there, because I have to visit one of my nieces there. So and her family. So I'm really excited to do that. I'm like, while I'm there, I might as well hit up, one of the awesome Johnson County museums. So I probably will go to the car museum. That's what I'm kind of thinking. It just again depends on the weather, but I'm kind of eyeing the car museum because I've been trying to go there for a while. So yeah, I'll probably do that. And trying to think anything else. I think that's it. Keeping everything real low key. Thanks again for all the support. I really appreciate your messages. You can find me on quaintandcozykc.com. You can also find me on the Tickety Tockety Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook under Quaint and Cozy KC as well. Thanks, everyone. I will talk to you soon. Definitely take care and, don't be afraid to go explore the quaint and cozy things in your town. Okay, goodbye.